Yo, friends, welcome back. Hello, happy Friday night. Time for another quart of beards and bourbon. This is a night of talking about Sarah J. Maas novels. Elephant in the room. That countdown music is bogus now. I don't know who changed the countdown music at StreamYard, but that person's fired. Holy cow. Way too passive. Way too sleepy. I'm going to have to find a new countdown music to kick this off. But welcome in, those of you hanging with us. Thank you for coming by. This is an ongoing series of live streams as I am working my way through the novels of author Sarah J. Maas. She's the author of the A Court of Thorns and Roses series and has several novel series. And if you've been checking out the playlist I've got down below, you'll catch all the previous novels, but we're in the Throne of Glass novel series. And tonight we're talking about book number 2. It's called The Crown of Midnight. And when I keep saying we over and over and over again, it's because I got this guy, the other beard we're talking about. We got the one and only bearded comic bro.
What's up, buddy? How we doing?
I mean, a little bit of whiskey. We got a little bit of Sarah J. Maas. It's a good night all around. Nice little Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. What better way to spend a Friday night than with two jabronis just talking about some Sarah J. Maas books? Like, what's up?
Yeah, guys' opinions on chick lit, right? I guess you could say
that's what people want.
the mansplaining you didn't ever realize you really wanted.
I mean, in my defense, though, I feel like y'all mansplained the book to me. I'm here like, wait, what happened?
Or the amazing ladies Sheena and Bethany, who are always in our chat.
Literally, our chat
to us, explains it to us. We just try to give you our emotional responses because we're a man. We're emotional. We have emotional responses to things.
It's true.
So, what are you sipping on tonight, man? What do you got there?
Just a basic. I think just some gin today because I was just going a little basic. Light.
Yeah, I got Johnny Walker Black. I'm feeling. I don't know what that says about me. It's my first time trying a bottle of that, so I'm enjoying it. I've gotten it at restaurants and things in the past, but it's first time buying one for myself. Man. So because we're doing the Throne of Glass series, we had to have an expert join us. And Paul has been awesome about helping us out through this backstage when we're talking about stuff in our private chat. And of course, all through the Throne of Glass when we discussed the first volume in this series. So we got to have him back. We got our one and only Big O from the Florida Gulf Coast.
What's going on, Paul? Hey, how we doing? I don't know if you can call me an expert, but I really do enjoy the book.
When you're with us, you are an expert on these books.
It doesn't take much to be in our company and be considered an expert. It's a low bar. You got this. Plus, you've read this series at least 2 times that I know of.
Yeah.
So in that way, you've got twice as much information as we do.
I don't know about that. Maybe just the same amount.
Just take the compliment. Just take the compliment.
Yeah,
I'm taking it. I'm trying to grow my beard back so I can be like you guys. Okay,
you're in. Yeah. For anybody that doesn't know Paul or Greg, all their links, YouTube, Instagram, all that stuff is down below, so you guys can subscribe, can follow up on those guys because it's so great that they're spending their Friday with us, hanging out and talking fairy smut. So we appreciate that. Although super light on the fairy and the smut this book, but we'll get to those problems later.
Definitely issues that those are lacking.
Yeah, not the right terminology, but I get why people want to just all encompass everything. Yes. Las Cruces, what is going on? He was here almost 5 hours ago, and then 2 hours ago. Appreciate it.
Just counting down, just waiting up. Like, hurry up, guys.
He was on it. And then Sheena was here. What's going on, Sheena? I hope you're back at some point. He's back again. Las Cruces was just a little bit ago. We got White Tiger, my man Ruben Guzman. He's joking about how I posted something about Wedding Crashers being very quotable, and he's got a stage 5 clinger comment there. I appreciate that. JP says John's late. It can't be 1 minute, 1 or 2 maybe minutes. Like we were having a chat. Yes, you were on time. You were good, Greg. DJ Wise says it's Bethany. So what is going on, Bethany? I know you've got usually early work day tomorrow, but I think you don't tonight. So I appreciate that. I didn't click on Greg. He was like, I was here. He was on time. See, I'm actually disappointed when both of you not telling me your thoughts of the end of the book. Oh, we will get to it.
We'll tell you, but like if we tell you then you have no Rory to come here and talk with us in the chat.
Got to fill that space a little bit.
Like we're like the people, like we're the people that are like on YouTube. We're like, oh hey, what do you think about this? Well, I made a video. Go watch the video rather than me have a real conversation with you. Like that's what we're trying to do here.
Engage with us, interact with us. JP says, I can't stay because I haven't read this, but I wanted to mock you both and then go back to watching other things. Okay, I appreciate it.
Respect.
I get that.
And yes, you should grab bourbon.
You are definitely cool enough. Sheena wants me to do, at some point, where I just sit in the back and let all the ladies come on my channel and talk, ACOTAR throwing a glass at some point and just have like a group panel discussion. I'm happy to host it and just like zip my lip and just watch.
And John and I just sit back and go, what?
Yeah. Just that's good. I didn't think of that. We just mute our microphones the whole time. What is up, Ian? He says, explain it to me. I finished the first book last week. I didn't get it. It was not for me. And that happens. Not everything is for everybody, right? That's the reality.
I will say, Tacoma Hangout, because I have thoughts about that for you. So nice. We'll get into that pretty quick here. So hang out.
And I said the same thing about Court of Thorn and Roses. If you can make it through that first book, which I think is still very entertaining, especially the last third, I think you'll find that the other books are vastly superior, every single one. So a little something to think about. We got Kenneth Bird in the chat. What's going on, Kenneth? Good to see you, sir. And Sheena's back. I appreciate you coming around. Teenage romance with elves and centaurs. I mean, sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. Channel member Derek is in the chat. What's going on, Derek? Good to see you, sir. Yes, you did. You gave me some comments. You gave me some feelings. I get it. I hope that Bethany. Sorry, because I'm gonna cuss you out, James. Oh, she's talking to me. She's talking to me, maybe.
Not me. Lady
Fantastic's in the chat. What's going on, Lady F? I appreciate you, Caroline, coming by. All right. So thanks for everybody for coming and hanging out with us. As I said, this is sort of an ongoing series. There's a whole playlist full of these. You can click through. If you're reading any of these books by Sarah J. Maas, you can kind of find the one you're on, hear a little bit of discussion, tell us where we're wrong, because it happens a lot. I'm going to give a brief synopsis of like where the story is at for folks and see how well I do with pronouncing some of the names. The story centers around who I pronounce as Selena, or maybe you say Selena, whatever. And she is an expert assassin newly freed from prison who has come to the court of the king and has become his champion through a sort of contest with other assassins in the original book. And because she is his champion now, she is being sent on quests across the land to get rid of any people he deems a problem. Because, of course, a king of his ilk has a lot of problems. A lot of things are rising up against him. So the end of the previous novel had her basically solidifying her position in the court and being sent off on some of her original missions. She had a love triangle going on. She had the prince, the king's son, Dorian, who was kind of her big cheerleader, if you will, somebody who was championing her in the games and has had feelings for her, but also recognizes that there's no shot. There's no real chance for it, right? Inversely, we have the captain of the guard, Kale, but it looks like Chol. You say it the way you want. I heard Kale was the way you say it. Am I wrong?
I always did Kale.
Kale. All right, there we go.
So Salad Boy.
Kale is the captain of the guard. He keeps a real strict rule of law in the city, takes care, keeps everybody in line, and keeps Selena in training so that she is at the top of her physical abilities. And meanwhile, probably checks her out a lot while she's exercising with him, because that's the real deal. There's the other half of the third of the love triangle. This novel has mostly to do with the intrigue around what's happening at the castle and how Selena is executing her job as the champion for the king. She comes back from a mission and seems to have dispatched yet another person off of the king's list. But we learn pretty quickly that she has been lying to the king. She's been not dispatching people, but basically faking their deaths and then helping them escape into exile and act like they never existed. And in doing so has kind of like ingratiated herself with the enemy at the castle and is sort of playing both sides in a kind of way. Meanwhile, both of the guys who are interested in her don't have any knowledge of this, and it's sort of like a lot of intrigue and lies among their little romance. And that's kind of the crux of the first part of the book. I just wanted to kind of get some thoughts from you guys on how you felt about the book overall, your feelings about maybe the characters and the journey that's going on here. Just an overall sense of your thoughts. Greg, let's kick it to you first, man. What did you feel about this one?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I feel like this seems to be a pattern with Sarah. Like the first one's like it's good, but it's like it lays the groundwork for the next ones to be really good, in my opinion. Because you can't get to where we are without having the setup. But the first book, it felt very formulaic, right? Like you knew, she's gonna win that tournament. Like she has to. Like maybe you could have gotten rope-a-doped and something else, but like it felt like you knew she was gonna win. So there wasn't any like, like worry of like, oh, what's going to happen here. So like for that aspect, like it felt like it was a good book, but it wasn't like a special. Where this one, it kind of feels like, I don't know where they're going to go, what routes they could take. And for me, it allowed the world to just breathe a little bit more and have a freedom that you were very contained in the walls of the castle, the last one, right? You're contained to the tournament. You're contained to the idea that it's going to probably end up in her favor. But this, it's like, okay, now the tournament's over. She's, guard of the king. What is going to happen? Where are they taking this story? And that's where I'm like, okay, it was fun for me. And I didn't know what was going to happen for a lot of it. And I'm like, like, okay, like, yeah, like, let's do this. And that's kind of what I wanted. So
sure.
Again, like, no knock on the first book, but I think this one definitely was
superior,
10 times better. Not 10 times, but a lot better. It was a lot better in my opinion.
I definitely can see that. What's up? TM Nerdy is in the chat. What's going on, Travis? I appreciate you coming by. And it looks like Bethany's going to pretend to be James all night. I get that. That's fair. You should read These Savage Shores. That's a very good read. You should definitely check that out.
Yes.
Worthy pickup for certain. Mom always said, don't ingratiate yourself with the enemy. All right. Well, don't tell Selena that, because that's kind of her whole plan. That's her whole plan. Paul, I know you were a big fan of this second book. What were your feelings on how it compares to the first? Obviously, I guess you can tell us how you've read the whole series twice, so like you could tell us maybe where you place it overall. But just what are your thoughts here on Crown of Midnight?
I really enjoyed the Crown of Midnight reading through it. First, second time didn't matter to me. It was good. I liked what Greg said with it kind of starting to breathe a little bit. Being inside of the castle for the first half, or for that first book, and then getting a chance to start to get a little bit more of Rifthold, kind of where they're at, that city, and knowing that she is moving out and doing stuff and kind of exploring and expanding a little bit on the different parts of Otterland, which is the countryside or the capital, wherever it is that they're at. So I like that aspect of it a lot as well. I like that it's laying good foundations. It's not really throwing a lot of things as like, well, it's questionable, where you get that feeling of, okay, other than maybe that relationship aspect of things, like you get some really good solid, like, hey, there's something going on here. We know there's an issue here. We know there's something going on with the king. We know there's something going on behind the scenes that nobody knows about, and we're starting to dig into it a little bit.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree with both of you guys, and this is a superior book to the first one, in the same way that I think the second ACOTAR book is better than the first one as well. It definitely, like Greg's point, it has more room to breathe, but I think also I feel like the stakes get elevated a little bit. Every character seems to have a little bit more of an investment, and there are the bigger pieces at play are starting to move, and as a result, I think the chess game seems to have a lot more at stake going on for everybody. So like Paul was saying, as far as what the king is planning and the things he's doing behind the scenes, all of that sort of starts to get peeled back a little bit. How Selena fits into all of this, that gets peeled back a little bit. And what the long-term goals for all these characters who are in this complicated game, you start to understand their strategies. And I think that's going to ideally, hopefully, set up kind of where the story goes going forward. And at least that's my thought on it. looks like Sheena's saying she's getting ready for bed, but she's listening. And Bethany says the ending. She really just wants us to get to the ending. She's like, talk about the ending. I really love the ending. We got to talk about the ending. We will talk about the ending.
At the end of the show.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the love triangle bit, at least at the beginning here. Because it definitely steps up in a big way, and then like a house of cards kind of falls down pretty quickly. I'm just curious of your thoughts. Obviously, Paul knows where this is going long term, so I'm going to go to Greg first again on this one. Like, how are your feelings on Kale versus Dorian? Like, where do you feel like she should belong at this early stage?
You want to know who I'm shipping?
What camp are you in now?
Who am I shipping here? Man, Salad Boy can take a seat. I'm Team Dorian. I am Team Dorian. Like Kale to me, it's just, I don't know. He just I don't know. I don't get like his character right now. Like he's supposed to be like the king's guard, like the second in command. He's never killed somebody until the end of the first book. And like, how do you become the king's guard without doing that? And then he's supposed to be training this killer assassin, like that,
who's also a teenager,
but she's just taking names left and right, and she has since she was a kid. Like, so his character is just weird for me. Like, and then some stuff that happens with Dorian later, I'm go, well, man, that's got to set up like.
Yeah.
How can you turn down Dorian once you find out some stuff you find out about Dorian? Like, come on, like you can't.
For sure, I'm totally with you with that one. Dorian would be like top of the list after this book, especially. Kale is just that too much of that. I don't want to say he's naive, but he's just that honorable, loyal sheriff that takes everything at face value. And yeah, that's naive, but gosh, it's like you won't want him to be like throughout the books, throughout that first portion of the book. Selena doesn't want him to be, but that's just what he is, and it's just he can't get away from it for his own good. He can't get away from it.
Right.
So
no, I'm
team Dorian for sure.
Okay, good. So we're all in agreement. Like it's a triple threat. Obviously, we get a relationship with Selena and Kale in this book. They definitely hook up and are together for a short stretch, but for me it seems like Dorian at least has a lot more of the same worldview and understanding that Selena does. And to your point, Kale is still, even at the end of this book, I think there's still a part of him that's the king's man, like which is stupid and stunning to me. Dorian at least knows the viper that is his dad and is so aware and is happily kind of like screwing around with dad's plans behind his back, which is for me like the sign that he aligns at least philosophically better with Selena, in my opinion.
And I mean, man, it's a classic WWE trope here. Like, Kale and Selena hook up, so you're like, oh my goodness, this is gonna be it. Well, and then they just boom hit you with a steel chair, and you're like, trauma happens.
Now we're bringing in all the wrestling references. I like it.
Listen. It's what I got to do here, okay?
There's nothing wrong with WWE references around here. We're good.
So if we're agreeing on them, the pair of them, let's talk a little bit about, because the term fairy smut is one I happily use, but relegate. I'm willing to relegate these books as not fitting into that category. This book has really no smut and lacks the magic except for a few moments. So I kind of want to talk magic for a little bit here. So
like, are you talking like physical magic or like magic?
I mean,
so there's some magic that
like, are you talking like magic in the relationship magic?
They're not making there's not a lot of magic making.
Well, that's what I like. You're like, you want to talk
I meant like spells and shit.
Oh, well, I feel like there's a lot of magic in
here. We've got the little witch lady in her little wagon. We've got some things happening with Dorian that are very fascinating. And hints at Selena's relationship to the castle in some ways, right? So Paul, what are your thoughts on what we're getting as far as the use of magic and the relationship between the characters here? Because I feel like we got some big hints.
Yeah, and that's I think the intention of this section is to really start to say, there is this possibility, there is something, there that could come in the future, and it really does just kind of start to trickle in a little bit where they start to get those experience, like Dorian being able to do a couple of the things that he does when he stopped Selena at that one point, and then kind of like he smashes a wall or something at one point in time.
Dorian.
Dorian does.
Yeah,
Dorian
yeah,
does.
like he sort of like punches at it or something.
Like he's
and it,
mad
like,
and
causes a crack in the glass of the castle. Yeah,
and then that's just like, that's not something that he's expecting, and that's not something that we're expecting him to have either. So
Right.
I really like that it's not forced. It's kind of, it's happening a little bit here or there, and a natural aspect towards things.
Sure.
Even though it's unnatural, it's still kind of finding its way in there.
And certainly shocking for the characters, right?
Mhm.
Greg, what were your thoughts? Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just having to deal with it, right? Kale
Yeah.
not ever having to experience it again. Him being that, loyal, honorable. Oh, there's no such thing as magic, or when you're not supposed to have it, and then he starts to experience it and he sees it, and it's like,
Yeah.
wait a second, this is not good. But
yeah. So, Greg, I mean, my favorite shocking twist was seeing Dorian start to use his magic a little bit. I don't know how you felt. I like the bit with the breaking the glass, the bit with the fight where he pushes, as it Kale, I think, back. Like those were parts that I was not expecting, that I was really enjoying. I don't know what your thoughts were on.
Yeah, no, I think like you all talked, like, that their magic is in this book, right? Like, that this world has magic. We just don't. We don't know where it's at, and we're starting to get hints here. We haven't even talked about my favorite piece of the magic yet, the door knocker.
Mort is the best. Mort is the best.
Mort is so good.
It gave me Labyrinth vibes. The door knockers.
Yeah, for sure.
Labyrinth.
Yeah. So, like, and I think, and that was kind of what I was hinting at, like, with the whole idea of that Dorian has magic in him as well. And then with some reveals that we get towards the end, of this book, you're like, okay, like, poor Kale, like, I'm sorry, bud, but you're bringing a knife to a gunfight, right? Like, when it comes to the, like, the cards are stacked against you here. And
He's
the
human on the Avengers.
He is,
who has no special powers.
He's the Hawkeye. He's the Hawkeye of the. But he's definitely be known. He's no Tamlin. Like, he still is clearly a better, like,
100%.
I just want, like, I know I'm
don't anger Sheena too much, but yes, way less.
I just want to make sure, like, I gotta be known that, like, he's still a lot better than Tamlin as a person.
Yeah,
like,
he has one like fumble as a character in this book that obviously he pays for pretty dramatically, but like, it's nothing with intentional malice.
There it is.
Bitterness. Yep, there she is. Yeah, she's not.
Sorry,
we're talking about Tamlin already.
I don't trust Kale not to mess it up, though. He's already messed it up once. I don't trust him not to mess it up again, right? Like,
because he's so connected. Like John said, he's still in line with the king. Like, he still is. He's loyal to a fault there, and like, you want loyalty in your partner and your significant other, obviously, but he's showing loyalty not to her necessarily, and to the king, and that's where it's like, ooh, that's where it hurts, and it costs him, and he messes up in this because of that.
Yeah, well, let's talk a little bit about that, obviously, because it involves the princess Nehemia, who is a friend of Selena's, and they share a lot of great moments together in the first and the second book, and rumors swirl around her that maybe she's helping with the resistance that's upsetting the king. The king hints to Kale that maybe someone might be threatening her life. Kale doesn't tell Selena. Instead, he just puts extra guards on her, assumes that it'll all kind of work out, doesn't realize that the king is implicitly sort of like, threatening or letting him know. Then, of course, trap is set. Nehemia gets killed, and Kale has to, Selena finds out that Kale knew all along, or at least knew that she was in danger and didn't tell her, that seems in a lot of ways, I'll go to Paul first, that seems in a lot of ways to bury him in Selena's esteem, right?
Yeah, that's a hard spot to, because she holds Nehemia so close as one of the few, like, it's one of the few other characters that she trusts almost, you know, and they kind of have that. It's a little stressed once in a while, that type of relationship, because they don't communicate. That I think is the biggest fault in Selena's character in these first two books, or actually a lot of the books, is that her communication skills are not up to par. But she holds her so close that as soon as she finds out that Kale probably fumbled the bag with taking care of Nehemia, yeah, it's gonna take a lot for her to be able to get him out of that hole at any point in time.
Sure. Yeah, Greg, what were your thoughts on? I mean, my question, I guess, is more like this: do you think Kale is getting over punished for this crime, or do you think the punishment of her kind of like basically just completely cutting him out of her life is fair?
Yes and no. Like, here's the deal.
No, it's yes, no.
He fumbled the bag here for sure. Like, but like Paul said, like, they all suck at communicating. Every character in this book. Like, if I was their their therapist, I'd just sit down and be like, all right, just talk. Like, let your yes be your yes, your no be your no, and just have a conversation and see where that gets us. See just where that goes from there, right? Like, but also, like, as much as Kale, you know, did mess up, like, man, she literally then tries to kill him. Like, I don't,
like, within seconds, just like I'm gonna kill the guy.
I don't know, Kale, maybe you back off that relationship then. Like, if the person that you hooked up with wants to kill you, get it, you made a big mistake, but still really then tries to kill you, maybe it's not for you. Like, it's not. So like that's where I say, like, yes and no. Like, yes, he messed up, you know, there, but like, I would not have said he deserves to die. Like, so like, and that's where it felt like that's what, you know, Selena want, you know, in the moment. And obviously passion and anger and emotions all run high in those moments and stuff. And so there's that. But, you know, for me as a reader now, my trust in him now is broken. That I don't think I can't trust him that he's going to make the right call here and the right move moving forward. Because that's where I'm kind of at. So I think he's getting a little too much pun. Like, that's where it's like yes and no. Like, yeah,
she overreacted for sure. I think she overreacted, but
and he underreacted. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's,
yes,
that can, like you said, put him in a room that we're dealing with 18, 19, 20-year-old characters that are inexperienced in all of those things. They don't know how to talk to each other,
right?
So they're not, you know.
Yeah.
So
no, that's
I see this in high school every day.
Man, I see this in adults that can't even talk to us. So to put it on 18 and 19-year-olds, that think they should be able to, it's like, so I can't give too much fault for that, but
yeah, no, that's fair. We got Big Nasty in the chat, and we got Christina Payne in the chat, champion moderator. What's going on, Christina? Sheena says Sarah J. Maas got a lot of trouble because she killed off this primary person of color in her story, but she makes up for it in the end, which was a great comment to make, because I felt like, no, this was a great character that kind of added some diversity to the story and to letting us see into other nations across this country. But that ended really quick. So I didn't know if anybody felt like that was, it felt abrupt to me, but that's maybe intentional because we wanted to feel what the characters were suffering through.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Definitely. I didn't expect her to get killed off. So much of ACOTAR, not very many people died. Right? Like, there's a couple, but not any of these main-ish.
Not the main characters,
right?
That,
and,
like, you're invested in.
And Nehemia feels like a main character through the first two books. You know, she feels like a main, like, she's an integral part of the story, and she's gone within the first third of the second book.
Right.
That was surprising for me.
Yeah,
but
no, fair.
I will say, I liked it though from the aspect of it feels like it goes back to that freedom aspect of the book. Like you don't know what's going to happen. You know, you don't know, like there's nobody is safe. Obviously, Selena's safe. For
With
now,
like 7 more books to go. I mean, I'm
like I
assuming
can't imagine she's not safe for quite a while. But to me, like anyone else is expendable if you get rid of Nehemiah.
Nehemia, yeah.
Nehemia.
You know, like that's, I think, opens it up to be like, ooh, and that allows me to say like, that's cool. That was almost like, it felt very like, maybe not the best example. Like James Gunn though, like when he did the Suicide Squad, it was very much right off the bat, like the very first scene, like everyone that you were invested in dies, and then you're like, so that means you don't know. It means anybody is fair game, and I think killing off a main character that was so important to her at that part of this, you know, what is it, 7 novels? That just, to me, that means that there could be, whether that happens or not, it doesn't matter. But the fact that there now is a possibility in my mind that there could be, it adds a layer to me as a reader that I'm more intrigued.
For sure.
Yeah, it's super impactful.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the weird marks. I don't know how you guys...
I think when I've heard somebody else say it is weird marks, even though it doesn't look like that for whatever reason. But one might be wrong too.
These are kind of the MacGuffin, it seems, to be going forward in the series. The things that the villain wants to get and the hero wants to stop them from getting. Connected to the weird gates, these interdimensional travel tools, you know. So, Paul, can you give us some insight, at least as far as up to right now, what this kind of all means? Because it's a lot of terminology, a lot of magic elements that we've only just scratched the surface of.
Yeah, so the weird marks are the little marks that we see. I think we saw one in the first book at the end of the first book where Nehemia was doing something in the ground to try to help protect Selena when she was facing off Cain. And then the weird keys are the what's referenced a lot in this book. The weird keys and the weird gate. It's definitely, like you said, a MacGuffin kind of deal. We got to figure out what they are. You got to get more information on them. They are definitely a piece of everything that is needed in the future, probably, because we don't get any resolution in this story, right? So it's part of what's happening now. So it's got to be something that we're expecting to show back up again in the future.
And they seem to hint that the king already has some of these things in his possession,
so
but that there are potentially at least one other out there in the world that Selena needs to find before the king does.
Yep, the weird keys are the things that he's got.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, and it feels like too, like they find the, you know, like she solves the riddle, you know, that she gets to then find the key, and like, oh, the key's not here, it's already gone.
Yep.
Yeah. Anticlimactic. Well, it gave me the Horcrux vibes from Harry Potter, where it was like he solves the riddle, they get there, and it's a fake, and it says somebody's already took it. Right?
Yeah, that's a great comparison, because it definitely, like, Mort knows more than what he's giving off, because sorry,
you're fine.
Mort knows more than what he's giving off, because he doesn't. It shouldn't feel like it's just, oh, here's the information, here's the answers. Like, you got to have a reason behind wanting these answers, because otherwise Mort's seen things that she doesn't realize. With the king going through there the first time, what he said, something like 20 years before anything even happened. So it's like you start kind of looking at that timeline with everything. It's like, man, how does that fit with Dorian and with the other kid and Dorian's brother and stuff like that? And it's like, how does that all fit together?
Yeah. No, totally. There's definitely a bigger mystery relating to these characters, their backstories, and the gates and the keys and the marks and the hatred of magic and the people who have it or the people that don't. Right. This seems to be the bigger backstory that is being slowly peeled for us.
Yeah,
Greg,
like
what are your thoughts on that like design for the backstory for everybody?
Well, though I find it interesting, like you have the whole how important magic feels like to this book, because it's so much of like we can't have any magic, right? Like essentially a Taylor Swift or Dazzler of this world comes in and plays a song and it talks about magic, and the king's like, cool, you're dead. Like,
Yeah.
like, like not even messing around. And so I like that mystery of like who's in control of the magic, you know, and you have the keys, and like why is magic gone, and what, like that's the stuff for me that keeps me going. Like, okay, I'm intrigued to know, like, you don't have to tell me right away, but give me some pieces of feed it along, but I'm here for it. And I want to kind of find this out and see where that goes. So
totally. Yeah, for sure. Let's get into the, like, is it a witch? The woman who has the little like wagon.
She's got the caravan. Yeah.
She's kind of a gypsy in my eye, like, you know, and there, this is where some of that riddle and the truth about Selena sort of spills over a little bit. Greg, what were your this was a character I really enjoyed. I really liked she gave me soothsayer kind of vibes, and, you know, fits nicely into at least a hint of a bigger universe outside of the castle for me. So I was curious your thoughts on this woman who comes to the castle.
It was like Baby Yellow Legs or something.
Baba
Yaga.
Yeah,
Baba Yaga. What was that, Paul?
No, I was gonna say John was saying soothsayer. I got Hansel and Gretel vibes when she started and started pulling everybody in,
which fits into the ACOTAR world, where you got the creepy witch in the
witch in the cabin with the kind of all the different artifacts and stuff.
Yeah, it very much felt in keeping with that. Which I know that there's no, at least this point, and as far as I know, direct link between all these universes. But I'm always looking for things.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You know, I thought she was an interesting character, very much like, you know, in ACOTAR, the Cyril, like, you know, like that character kind of in where, like, now this is obviously one that you don't like get one over for, like, oh, I hope she, you know, but she adds an interesting, you know, dynamic there too, of right, like, of the bribing of, you know, like, hey, I'm gonna spill the beans on Dorian, and I'm gonna, like, that it's not all clear cut, and it, you know, forces Selena to have to do things, and it challenges. She really comes in to challenge our characters to go past their, you know, what they're supposed to be wanting, expecting to do, and also forces these characters to have conversations and have, you know, it almost is like you have to be forced into having a conversation, because if not, like, secrets are going to get spilled. So, like, you need to kind of have some stuff, like, and I was like, I liked it for that, because it was a way of almost saying, like, let's have our characters discuss it and figure it out together without, like, having them have a sit down at a Starbucks and, you know, hash it out.
Yeah.
That's
they
very
should
fair.
head down to Ye Old Tavern.
Ye Old Tavern and have some bourbon with the beards.
Christina is dropping the links for both Greg and Paul, and I appreciate that. Christina, you were rocking. So yeah, Paul, what are your thoughts? I mean, my only disappointment with this character, because I love both sequences we get with her, is that it doesn't seem like we're gonna get her again, because like, she dead at the end of this.
and she dead too. She ain't coming back either, so sorry to give you that spoiler. My bad.
I mean, I assumed, but it's good to know that I assumed correctly, I guess.
You break John's heart. He loves him some.
I gave you one
scary witches. Yeah,
one spoiler last time. No dragons. This time Baba Yellow is for sure dead. Sorry.
See, and here's the beautiful thing. I already forgot that you told us there's no dragons in this, so I'll forget that Baby Yellow Legs doesn't show up again in the next book, and I'm like, she might be back. Like, we'll have this conversation next time. Like, she might be back, and John, like, you know, Paul said, like, she won't be back. I'm like, nah, I forgot. I'm like, well, at least there's gonna be dragons.
Did he say that?
I don't know. Paul said there's not gonna be dragons.
No, it's definitely she definitely gives that extra, like, there's other stuff out there that we still don't know about. Like, other than the things that we're starting to learn about, there's still other people out there that we still don't quite know about. And she's, you know, representative of that. Like, there's other things that we're going to hope that our characters are going to continue to experience. and she's just a scrape of the nail, so to say, of that, showing off that, okay, hey, there's something else out there still. There's still more to be known and to be learned about.
Because she also gives us some hintings at the fact that maybe there's more to Dorian's backstory and more to Selena's parentage than we had before, which is a big part of I can assume the rest of these novels going forward, because we can tackle the end here for Bethany if she's still in the chat. We get a pretty big reveal at the end here. Paul, do you want to let us in on what we learn here?
So right towards the end, as everything's kind of starting to come to a head for her, with her and Kale and with everything that's happening, she drops the little hints that he's already kind of on his own path of figuring out, in a way, because he'd been going to the library and trying to get some of that info of why is this stuff not here, and she lets it out. She slips the hints that she's the rebel princess, so to say. She's our Princess Leia that we've got to try to figure out who she is and why everything's going on, and she's Aelin. So it's a big part of everything, and the fact that she gave him that much information before she leaves is kind of like, well, I felt when I read it both times, it made me feel like, okay, she's just saying bye to Kale. She done, right?
Because she doesn't know if she'll ever see him again.
So she might as well kind of confirm for him to give him enough info, because she's off, and that's kind of like she's off, and either she's going to go die or she's off and she's never coming back, kind of deal.
Oh, sure. Greg, what was your reaction when that sequence hit? Because obviously it's a very, I don't want to say controversial, but a big moment for a lot of the fans of the series.
Well, because right before that, they go into the different realm kind of, and like she has the power, like she kind of basically is fae, right? Like she's a fairy, and so like to me that was kind of one of those like, ooh, like, is this somehow now loosely tied into some role?
Now that we finished reading ACOTAR, it's all got to tie in, right?
Everything needs a tie in. So like that, it's one of those, you're like, it's when you get like, oh, she's fae. I'm like, I know that. Like, for me, like it's one of those like,
thank you for confirming what I believe.
Yeah.
And just like, but that's one of those like things that hit you where you're like, there's something I'm familiar with now because I've read the other series, which if you haven't, you might get excited, like the possibility is there maybe. So for me, that was a big reveal again as a reader. I'm like, ooh. Sure. Now, again, I don't know what it amounts to. John, you don't. Paul, you do. So that's okay. Paul's been the master at this chat. I will say this of like
balancing it. Yeah.
Just he acts, and like the way he says it of like he doesn't know what's happening and doesn't give stuff away. Like even like we're like little smirks of like he.
Yeah, I wish I could tell you all right now. Like I could tell you everything that happens, but that's not how it goes.
You do such a good job of acting like you've not read the books ahead of us, and
I appreciate that. The books, they really did for me. They really did make reading enjoyable again. So. I don't want to ruin that, so because I know you guys enjoy doing it, and I have to like make sure every time I say something's like, well, I can't say it this way because you guys pay attention to everything I say, so it's less like
we do.
But then John doesn't remember it, so
I forget. But John and I literally have talks afterwards. Like, all right, what do you think, Paul? Like, we watched the replay of this. After we kick you out of the stream, we spent another 2 hours rewatching the stream, taking notes and going like, "Ooh, do you think he meant this?" Like he blinked twice when he said he likes Dorian. Does that mean that he knows something we don't know? Like,
yes,
that's real.
Yes, it does. He does know. No, but that reveal at the end, like you said, it was a big deal. One's like, oh, but you had the hints throughout. Like there's so many little tidbits and sprinkles of a little bit of info here, a little bit of info here, but to get that kind of reveal at the end it felt good to figure it out finally and kind of get it confirmed and to see it happen, right? Like, okay, she is Fae, and like, oh, wait a second, what does that all mean? And as soon as she's in a realm where there's magic, she's able to do stuff. Like, what does that mean? Like, when she's back there, what's going on there? Like, why is it that? Why isn't there magic? What? So it's all of these extra questions that get added to the end of this book, and that's, again, another good Sarah J. Maas trope, if you will. It's like it goes, good pace, kind of slow, good pace, and then it just speeds up, and then it's like, wait, I need to know what this.
Yeah,
what
give
this
me the
answer is.
next 3 chapters, right?
Yeah. So.
Want to say hello to Comic Cap Collectibles. What's going on, my friend? Thank you for coming by. So then I guess I have 2 questions that I want to ask, because the first one for me, the question is, like, did you assume that she was this missing princess? Because I did. Like, I assumed all the way along that she was going to be significant in some way. So the twist wasn't surprising for me. I don't know if it hit anybody else the same way as me. Like, I was not shocked by the reveal, I guess. I kind of felt, especially in the first book, the way she's talking with the ghost lady in the castle and the interactions with the castle, for me, was a big hint that, like, she's special in some way. And that, for me, led me to believe that from the jump. I don't know about you, Greg. Did you have that same hint, feeling, suspicion?
Yes, that she was special. Would I have guessed that was who she was? Maybe not, because I also probably didn't fully understand who that character is either, like, like, to the degree. So it was more about what she could do, was more of the surprise, like, oh,
sure.
Yeah.
Or that she reveals the information to KO at the same time, right? After he's kind of like screwed up so big.
Right. Like, I felt like, really? Like, that's you're going to tell, like, you just tried to kill the guy couple chapter. I mean, I was farther along, and now you're like, you know what? I'm going to give you some very pertinent information that could be
totally
very detrimental to me.
Yeah.
Like, that's where a little bit of the naiveness of her even comes along, where I'm like,
well, and his loyal ass will want to turn her in as soon as he knows, like, that's part of his conflict now, is that he is so, to the T, straight as an arrow to the king. Now what does he do? Is this person that he felt like he loved for a good portion of our story, and now it's like, wait a second, that is the person that he's done all of this stuff to prevent from coming back.
Yep.
He's done all of these things, banning magic and killing these rebels and doing all of this stuff. Like, he's doing all of these things that we know about because this person is rumored to be around, and then that person is literally in front of him half the time.
Yeah.
So it's like, and he just doesn't know it.
So were you shocked by that reveal then, Paul, or did you assume in some way that this was the way they were going to be going?
The first time I read it, I was surprised. If I think back to that first book, the first time I read it, because I read Assassin's Blade first. Right, that was that series of novels, and there's no hint of any of that in those books, right? It's just, it's a good predecessor, like we were talking about. It felt like a really good just predecessor to all of this info. And then I read Throne of Glass, and then it's like, okay, this person that they kind of keep, like Greg had mentioned, is like, you're not really telling me a lot about, but this other person is somewhere out in the world, right? And then you start getting more of that information about this other person, and it's still another person for like the first half of of this second book.
Right. There's no confirmation. Yeah.
And then you start getting those extra little, more pointed hints, and it's like, oh, this little bit of a trickle of, oh, wait a second. Then you start connecting the dots, and it's like, so that was surprising the first time I read it around. When I went through it again more recently, it was like, oh, I should have known. I should have seen some of these kind of, they're a little bit more when you know it. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's there. Oh, yeah, it's there. So
then can I ask, Paul, I'll ask you first. My second question is, how early do you think Selena knew? At what point was she fully aware that she's that person, that she's this lost princess?
Because
I don't feel like they implicitly tell you. It's not like there's a moment where she flips a chapter and she's like, oh my gosh. I mean, and she seems to be researching ancestry for many reasons. She seems to be studying histories of regions and royal families and things for a lot of different reasons, to better understand Dorian and his father, looking at Kale, looking at her, all these things, the royal line. So part of me thinks maybe it's, I mean, I don't want you to give away if you know the reveal for later on. Part of me feels like she might have known all along, like had some hint all along, and she was just looking for the confirmation versus stumbling upon information and being flabbergasted. It felt in some way to me like she was looking for confirmation of something she kind of had a suspicion for all along. Maybe I'll give this to Greg if you're worried.
Give it to Greg. Let me check something. Let me read something.
He's checking the spoilers to see.
What did you feel, Greg?
No.
Did you feel like she knew all along, or did you feel like she figured it out in these books?
Yes and no. I feel like
you suck at answering my questions, Greg.
I know. Listen, I'm the king at answering your questions. So I'll answer the question with the question, and then get you to really reveal what you want,
and then I'll speak to my question,
and then I can respond. So, the idea of I think she had inklings that there was something more special there, right? To me, my feeling is when she did the magic and they went to the other realm and she had the magic, then like her abilities in that realm, I think it was to me, it came off as someone, doesn't know what's going on later in the book. It came off to me as this was a confirmation of the stuff she's been researching in the libraries for all the past 2 books. Where she knows something, where then if she's like, okay, if I can do this type of magic, there is some connection there of who she is in her own realm. So that was kind of where I was at of like, I think she had inklings that she was more special, but reading it, I assumed she kind of was like, like, oh, I have this power, kind of almost like Dorian, like discovering his power. He's probably starting to realize there's probably something more to him too, as well, because of as things happen. So,
I'm just trying to think back to, last time I read through this, these 2 books especially, with everything that's happening, I almost think that we miss some things that towards her purpose, towards why she's doing some of this stuff. I personally, once I found out that she was that person when she gave that away, I thought back and was like, was she trying to just cover up the whole time? Was she trying to do the research to make sure that there wasn't anything that could link her back to something?
Meaning she did know all along, but she was trying to be smart about making sure that nobody could figure it out.
And there's definitely parts of her that something happened and there's some kind of, some type of amnesia. But I also still think that she knew that she was Fae the whole time.
Okay.
So I just don't know. I just don't know if we missed that purpose behind why she was doing that research. Was she trying to look into more information to make sure that things were covered up the right way, or that it couldn't connect her to something else?
Greg's like, this is hurting my brain.
Yeah,
this is getting Jonathan Hickman on me. I don't like it.
I definitely feel as though there's some blocked memories for something, right? Like she doesn't remember all of it. You can tell that she doesn't remember all of it, but she knows that she's Fae at least. She knows that she's Aelin the whole time.
It's like freaking Severance. Like she just shows up to the castle, doesn't know what's going on. Then like she goes outside the castle. She's like, "Woo! I can kill people." Like,
yeah,
she doesn't know what her Rowdy's doing. So
yeah, and that's why I want to try to think back, and it's like, hey, is she doing all of this stuff knowing?
Or what did you think at this point when you'd read 2 books? Did you believe because that was my biggest question at the end of the book was, at what point did she figure this out and how much did she know going into her research? And for me, my takeaway was she knew a ton. And this was a goal of confirming what she believed, and maybe she didn't want to believe it and needed some proof to at least accept the reality that she was dealing with.
Yeah, I definitely felt like the first time around that she was missing something. There was, like you said, there's something that's not connecting everything, but she knows like who she is, and she's just trying to cover it up.
Okay.
So, and that was, and to be able to put like she never looked the king in the eye once, and any of the things that she's doing, she never looked them in the eyes. So that was something that to me was like, when you realize it, and you know she's reveals herself, and you realize that she is Aelin, is like, oh wait a second, she never looked him in the face for a reason, just in case, that he knew what Aelin looked like. So I don't know.
Blowing my mind. I didn't even think about that. Okay, layers deeper here, man.
So. It gets deeper as you get into the next couple books too.
Yeah, well, so
it's super fun. It's super fun.
The ending obviously leaves us on a bit of a journey. We have Selena going off to a new nation, a nation that maybe she has now a deeper connection to, and the possibility of joining that resistance revolution kind of system. And Kale now having the information and being stuck at the castle to kind of deal with some of that. Greg, when you finished, what were your thoughts on, like, I know you dove right into the next book, so clearly you were like, I got to know at least kind of where we're going.
Well, I did. I dove into the book, and I probably would have crushed it until I got to the realization. I'm like, I'm going to finish this in September. We're not going to talk about it until May of 2025.
Because I'm going to speed.
And so I had gotten bogged down with the other interviews and stuff. So like after 100 pages, I stopped, and I will just pick back. I'll just start from the beginning when I pick back up. So I have a little bit of knowledge of like what kind, but like not much, because the first, I feel like
books always start real slow.
Yeah, and I think the third still does too. And so, I mean, I'm intrigued. I want to know what's going on, and I'm not saying this as a knock. Like, the series would have been done if I wasn't doing this series. Like how I am as a reader,
you would have just plowed right through the whole 7 books.
But this has allowed me to kind of pace myself, because when I get obsessive when I get into a series. Like, I'm going back and doing back issues of all the original Fantastic Four now, and I'm like, I should be reading other stuff right now, but I'm like, no, I want to have as much Fantastic Four knowledge before the summer. So like, I'm cramming. Like, that's just nice. I have an addictive personality of like, when I get into something, I want to consume everything. That's what I do with my interviews.
To read though, that's a lot of reading.
I know, and I want to. My goal is at least read the first 100 issues of the original arc, and then read some of the other arcs. But I want to at least get in
some Hickman.
Yeah, I want to get into some of those other ones, but I will at least am trying to get to 100 of the first, and I feel like I can, and then kind of go to some other arcs and then come back maybe if I have time. So like, that's how I like when I do an interview, I'll read a book.
So you had to like pump your brakes on this.
Yeah. So I pumped my brakes a little. Well, I pumped my brakes because I got into another book series. I got into the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. And it's so good. And
all right.
What?
Well, all right, then you're ready. You'll be ready to go.
I'm ready. I'm ready to hop in whenever that. Yeah. So.
Okay. Paul, what about you? When you had finished this book on the first time through, can you remember kind of like where your head was on what was going forward and what you had kind of hoped for or what thought was going to happen?
Same thing. I wanted to just keep going, and I just did. And the next one, this Heir of Fire book, is for me top 3 of this series. It's in the top 3. Like it was my favorite to get through, and the information and all the stuff that happened there,
sure.
and the things that occur to all of the characters that we know about. Like it's so good. So
nice.
I was excited to
What's up, Carlito?
Answer those questions, right? Like what we've been talking about. What's going on in the background with the king? What's going on? What's going on with Kale and Selena or Aelin, whoever we want to call her? It's definitely what's going to happen to Dorian, now that he's starting to figure some stuff out. It's for sure, like all of those questions I wanted answered. So I jumped right into it. And this Air of Fire book, I plowed right through it, like Greg was saying.
Nice. Can we pause real quick, because Paul, I feel like you brought up a point here that how many freaking names does Sarah have to give?
Selena.
She had like 30 names in the first 2 books.
And she's gonna get more.
And then at the end, they're like, "Hey, let's give you a new name at the end of this book." And she's going to another country, and this other one, she's gonna get a new book, a name there too. Like, she has.
Is this kind of like Daenerys in Game of Thrones, where she's like the mother of dragons, the bringer of death, the hanger?
That's a meme. Curtains. If you find it, that's a great meme, because it's this list that goes down for both of them. It's gonna keep happening, which is fine. It's a good thing, because that just means she means something in a different way to different people.
No, because it's gonna mess with my brain. I'm like, wait, who is this character? It's the same character.
It's still Selena, Greg. Yeah.
I'm gonna be like, man, I hope Selena hooks up with this character, and then John like, Greg, those are the same. I'm like, dang it.
She's gonna kiss herself. That's what it's gonna be about.
I'm gonna forget these things, and this is.
I wanted to bring up Bethany's comment here, because I know that before we went live, Paul was talking about how the first time he read the books chronologically, the way they, prequel all the way 1 through 7, but that 2 of the books, I believe you're saying 5 and 6, are stories that take place at the same time, but they were published one and then the other. They did the same thing with Game of Thrones books 4 and 5, where they took some of the stories out and told them in one chunk, and then the other stories told separately, but you could put them together in one book and kind of like read them in tandem. And that's what I know a lot of the people said you can do with books 5 and 6 from this series, is read a chapter from this one, a chapter from that one, and kind of go back and forth, so that you're getting both stories chronologically, versus reading all the way to an end point, then going and picking up the next book and reading from the beginning all the way to the same end point.
I like that.
So what are your thoughts? Obviously, Greg is like, this seems really complicated. I'm just going to read one book at a time.
No, the first time, like I said, the first time I went through it, that's how I felt as well. I was like, no, I got to just do one book at a time. I mentioned earlier to John, my daughter reads 3 different books from 3 different series all at once. And I'm just like, I can't do that. What are you doing? It's like, she's like, you read different series of comics. You could do this too. And it's like,
point.
It's different. It feels different to me.
Right.
So doing jumping into the tandem read was definitely a jump, right? It was like, okay, I got to trust this process. I got to see what it feels like, and it feels good. It's the right thing. It really does make it more enjoyable, because again, if you read the books in order, that time frame that you're not reading the next book and the next what happens, like, it makes the book that you're in between, it doesn't make it as good.
So you're saying like the first book might end on a cliffhanger where you're like, I want to know what happens next, but then you got to pick up the next book that goes all the way back and you have to read that whole book to get to the same end point before you can finally figure out the cliffhanger ending by picking up the next book. Does that make sense, Greg?
Yeah.
You read 5, then it ends with a cliffhanger, but now you got to read 6.
I get it.
The same cliffhanger again.
But were they released at the same time?
No.
So my thing is
people when these books were first published, people went through that cliffhanger, and then they got another book at the same time, and they didn't get that cliffhanger resolved, and they were salty about it for sure.
Oh, and I get that. But listen, I understand being annoyed and salty that a story getting roped along. Like, I watched How I Met Your Mother all along, so like I understand the whole getting roped along the whole time, and then going
lost.
Are you like yes? But I guess my thing is this is like, Bethany. I see Bethany in chats like it's worth it. Did you all do this though? Would you recommend doing it as someone who hasn't gotten to experience it the first time that way?
So as a first time reader,
that's all I'm asking, because my thought is there has to. And maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like, because she might have come out and said this, there has to be an intentionality for why Sarah did it the way she did it as a writer and as a creator. And for me, I want to at least trust the process of the creator this time. And then if I reread it, go, that's like, it almost to me is like, if you read, it'd be like, it's kind of how the One Hand and the Six Fingers comic came out, and they were in tandem, and you read it in tandem. And I do think it would be like weird to read one volume and then read the other volume and not get that. But I don't know. So Bethany read it in tandem the first time.
I'm assuming by reading it in tandem, you mean you have a physical copy of each book, and you read a chapter here, put it down, pick the other book up, read a chapter. For me, the tricky part for me is I have this digitally on an iPad in one giant 7-book volume. So to skip around is almost impossible. I would have to like go to the table of contents each time, find the other book, find the chapter, open that book, read it, and then go back and find, like, it's like impossible for me to do it in the I would have to go and get physical copies.
I was going to say, John, there is I don't know if you know that there's a thing called a library, though, that you could check out a physical copy of a book.
A library?
Yeah, it's like a bookstore, but you don't have to buy the book. Like, you just borrow the book, and then like you return it when you're done.
And they just let you take them?
Yeah, they just you say like, hey, here's my information, take the book, and you can go. So you can do that.
I like to have the physical books as a trophy to show my accomplishments. So
I'm the wall.
Yeah, they're up on the wall.
I'm a physical book reader, so I'm that's what I'm doing.
Usually I am, but for this kind of like fantasy book series that I read so quickly, I'm like, oh, if they've got a deal going and I can get all 7 books in one bundle, that's what I did for both of these series.
It makes a lot of sense.
They have an e-reader version of the tandem. Now you're really getting wild.
That would make it so much easier, because then you don't even have to figure out which is which. You just plug it in and say, hey, I need this, and there it is.
I think,
go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut
No. I was just gonna say, John, we have to figure this out, because obviously it's going to affect this show. And
thankfully we've got 2 more novels before we get to this problem.
So next year,
this will be a 2026 problem.
I'm just saying, I'm gonna push to read it the way it was created and written. And
my ebook is gonna be already preset for that. But it'll be.
I will experience it with you again.
So,
we could also read both and just do one big episode talking about 2 books. No, too much to cover.
No, that I guess I could see that. I could see reading both books and then doing it. I'm probably set my ways. I'm going to read it in order that it came out, which is also why I'm waiting on Assassin's Blade, because it didn't come out before these other books, and so like I want to.
I will buy them for you and have them for you for the tandem read, Bethany.
Take the spine off, re-glue everything so that it's in the right order.
This is like those guys that recut The Godfather and put it in chronological order.
No, I didn't watch that for a reason.
I can't do it.
No, I found a podcast that actually made like bookmarks. So that I have one bookmark in each, and then I just would go. It's like, okay, when I ran into the next thing.
Bethany is incredibly crafty, and she's got all kinds. If you guys don't know, Crafts by Bethany, she's got. I'm still trying to figure out. I want to get a set of tumblers for you guys that we can all enjoy. Bat Boys tumblers. So I got to get Bethany to come up with a good tumbler design for the Bat Boys that I can purchase a set so that we can all get one.
So here's. Man, I don't know, man.
We can. There's time, Greg. There's time. Don't make a decision.
John, what you should do is put a poll up. A community poll.
There you go.
And get the 10. I will say this. No, I won't. Just put a poll up.
The problem is it's really the people that watch these shows, right? It's most of my comic friends don't necessarily watch these shows, so I kind of feel like comment on this video and let us know.
There you
go. Once it's posted, if you think it should be a tandem read when we do the review, or if you think it should be 2 books separate.
I'm gonna email Sarah and just say, hey, Sarah,
do it. Yeah, give her a call.
Let me know, like, what do you think I should do?
Text her, whatever.
Straight to the source.
I'll just like, Sarah, how should I go approach this? And then like, do you want to talk about it with us later? And she's like, yeah, of course. And then she'll be like, I don't have a beard, so I can't. And I'm like, okay, I get it.
We'll send her one of the plastic one, or the
Bethany can crochet a crafty beard.
The little hook over the ears with the little wiring. Yeah, I get it.
She's got supplies to rebind the books. Oh yeah, because I remember seeing her. She
does fun bindings. Yeah,
yeah, it looks
really
so
cool
good.
stuff.
Bethany would literally, what she would do is like, you know what, Greg, don't read it in tandem. I'll just send you book 5, and you can read it, and and I won't be any wiser.
You're like, this is a really big
book 5, and it'll just be note to self, don't read anything.
Like Lord of the Rings now
for the next 3 months.
Oh, I got a new Lord of the Rings set. I lost my old one from when I was growing up, and my parents got me a new set. Oh, so nice.
I got a hardcover 1 giant volume version.
Oh, that's cool too.
It's got all these great color illustrations inside.
Yeah.
I've never read them.
Well, this, we can go the other way.
When we're done with this,
instead of the fairy smut, we can go to the like completely like
classic
asexual,
classic
superhero.
fairies. Yep.
Literally no female characters in a book.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, there's probably some homosexuality that's latent in the story that we don't want to get into, but like, it's there. Let's just be honest. Any last thoughts, guys? I know we're at 1 hour and 10. I don't want to keep anybody too late, but if there's anything we missed or didn't get to, but I feel like we got to everything.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
I've got my little like cheat sheet that I sent you guys. And I think we've hit it all.
I think we hit it. I think we hit most all of it. I think we didn't talk about Mort enough. Right, like Mort is just so good. There was some stuff that was happening in the castle that we didn't really go through, but there wasn't a lot that it connected with. Like there was that thing with the that creature that was in the library for a while, and kind of some of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There was just
a lot of little breadcrumbs I felt like being dropped for later.
She talked to the lady in the prison that poisoned her in the first book a lot, and so you started, and the cousin that came into town, so you started to see the workings of like that they might be under control, like there's like stuff's going on with their headspace,
and that and with some of that and how it's linked to everybody else that's in the castle, that like it feels like that's going to be important because we didn't get a lot of information on it yet, right? Like you said, with that first book, reading through it, it felt very much so, oh, okay, she's going to win this competition. All of these things is very, like Greg said earlier, it's very like, oh, it's got to go this way because we got to lay the framework. We got to make sure it's a good story so that we can get into the nitpicky stuff. And we're starting to, like you said, those little bit of breadcrumbs that lead to the gingerbread house. We're going to be getting there.
Well, I'm excited for more for sure. At some point, we'll be doing the Heir of Fire, and I've finished Assassin's Blade 2, so we'll get to some of that later on. We've got one more ACOTAR live stream probably coming up in a Saturday to be named here in the future. We're trying to figure out with Justin's schedule.
Oh, and oh my goodness,
that's the like Silver Flames. That's a
late night
show. That's a late night show
after dark.
That's got to be explicit warning.
That's the one when I dropped this morning. Yes, I've got it read.
You need to have the banner just scrolling banner.
Yeah, John's Comics for no kids allowed.
This is where the read at the moment, right off the bat.
Yeah. But kids are coming soon because clearly everybody banging. Well, I appreciate you guys a ton for coming and hanging out. Again, the links for both of these guys are down below, Instagram and the YouTube. So make sure you're checking it out. And we've got a ton of on our playlist where you can go back through if you want more Sarah J. Maas discussions. I just got to notice that JP is watching us from the beginning. He's on Crown of Thorn and Roses, Court of Thorn and Roses. He's watching that one now. So I appreciate people who
he's actually watching the old one right now.
Yeah, he jumped to the volume
reading
1.
The books, right? Yeah,
he's reading.
He's done the first trilogy.
The first 3.
Yeah, he's done the first 3. Which
now he's watching those.
3 are so good.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks everybody for coming by.
He may catch up then.
He might.
No, he might.
Well, because
I don't think he's bought this series yet. I think he's just bought
if he's read the first 3.
The little blue one's quick.
The 3.5 is literally a 2-hour read.
Right. But I don't think he's bought those 2 yet. I think he just bought a 3-pack. So he's got to get off of his stuff. That's what I'm saying. All right. Well, Thanks everybody for coming. I appreciate you all, and we'll catch you guys again soon for another late night beards and bourbon. Bye.
Bye.